I still remember that night. The air in our house felt different, heavy, almost electric, like a warning no one could hear. It was a Saturday evening, and the sky had turned a dark, almost angry purple as the sun dipped below the horizon. I had just finished setting the dinner table when my daughter-in-law Priya walked in, dressed in a stunning gown. She had a sparkle in her eyes, the kind that makes you feel something is about to happen, though you can't quite say what. She smiled at me, the kind of smile that hides secrets. And I felt a strange flutter in my chest, a mix of excitement and unease. Earlier that week, I had received a very special gift from my late husband, a ring worth $3 million. It was not just a ring. It was a piece of our history, our love frozen in gold and diamonds. I had worn it only a few times, and now it sat in my jewelry box, a gleaming treasure I trusted no one with. And yet tonight, Priya asked if she could borrow it for the party she was attending. She said it so casually, so sweetly, that I almost laughed at my own hesitation. But there was something in her tone, something almost too eager. That made my fingers tighten around the box. "I'll take very good care of it," she said, her voice soft but firm, almost persuasive. I hesitated. Every part of me screamed to say no, to keep that ring safe where it belonged. But my son Raj was watching from the doorway, his eyes silently urging me to trust her. I placed the ring carefully in her palm. The diamonds sparkled under the light, and for a brief second I felt a pang of fear. Something about that sparkle tonight felt different, as if it was daring fate to take a step. The house was alive with the sounds of the evening, my grandson laughing in the living room, the soft clinking of cutlery from the kitchen, the distant hum of the streetlights outside. I watched as Priya turned to leave, her heels clicking on the marble floor, a rhythm that seemed to echo like a ticking clock counting down something I could not yet see. I tried to shake off the unease, telling myself I was being paranoid. But deep down, a whisper in my mind warned me that tonight would change everything. Hours passed and the house fell silent. I sat by the window, staring out at the city lights, thinking about the ring. My mind refused to rest. What if something happened? What if it got lost, or worse? Every minute felt stretched, heavy with dread. Then my phone buzzed. A message from Priya popped up. "The party is amazing. Everyone is staring at the ring. You'll see pictures soon." I forced a smile, but the pit in my stomach only grew. Something about the way she had worded it, so proud, so careless, made my heart pound faster. And then, just as I was about to put my phone down, I heard a faint sound, something almost like a crash, followed by hurried footsteps. My pulse jumped. I rushed to the door, calling out her name. Silence. Only the soft rustle of the wind through the curtains answered me. I felt a shiver run down my spine. Something was wrong. Something very wrong. I grabbed my coat, my heart thumping, and ran outside. The street was quiet, the party distant, hidden behind closed doors, and laughter I couldn't hear. But I could feel a tan-invisible tension hanging in the air, a sense that the night had shifted. And in that moment, I knew that the ring, my most precious treasure, was no longer just a piece of jewelry. It had become the center of something I could not yet understand, something that would pull me into a whirlwind of fear, secrets, and unimaginable events. And then my phone buzzed again. A message. But this time it wasn't from Priya. It was from an unknown number. I opened it and my blood ran cold. The words on the screen made no sense, yet they carried a threat I could feel in my bones. "We have it now, and you will regret trusting her." I froze. The night felt colder, darker. The distant city lights seemed dimmer. My hands shook, my heart raced, and 1,000 thoughts collided in my mind. How could this happen? How did my ring end up in danger? And most importantly, what would happen next? I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. But deep down, I knew one thing. This night would haunt me forever. And whatever Priya had done, or whatever had happened at that party, it was only the beginning. I still remember that night. The air felt heavier than ever, like it was pressing down on my shoulders. I couldn't stop thinking about that message, the words flashing on my phone like fire in the dark. "We have it now." and you will regret trusting her." My hands trembled as I stared at the screen, the message replaying over and over in my mind. Who could have sent this? And how did they even know about the ring? My mind raced with fear and confusion. I felt my heart beating so loudly, I was sure anyone nearby could hear it. I tried calling Priya, but her phone went straight to voicemail. Panic gnawed at me. Something was terribly wrong, and I couldn't ignore it any longer. I grabbed my coat and ran toward the party hall, my mind filled with 1,000 worst-case scenarios. As I stepped outside, the cool night air hit me like a wave, sharp and biting, and the city lights seemed to blur, reflecting my own panic. Every shadow looked suspicious. Every passing car seemed too fast, too deliberate. I had a feeling that someone, somewhere, was watching me. When I reached the hall, I could see Priya through the large glass windows, laughing and talking, surrounded by people in sparkling dresses and suits. The ring glinted on her finger, catching the light, shining brighter than ever. My chest tightened. I wanted to rush in, grab her hand, and snatch the ring back. But something stopped me. Something I couldn't explain. It was the way she looked at me, or maybe it was the way she didn't notice me at all. She didn't seem worried. If anything, she seemed proud. And that frightened me more than anything else. I stepped inside, my shoes clicking against the polished floor, drawing attention. People turned, smiling politely, but I could barely see them. My eyes were fixed on Priya. I approached her slowly, trying to control my trembling hands. "Priya, we need to talk about the ring," I whispered, my voice almost lost in the music and chatter around us. She looked at me, a faint smile on her lips, her eyes calm, almost too calm. "Don't worry, it's just a ring," she said lightly, brushing my concern off like a trivial thing. But I knew better. I could feel it in my bones. The ring wasn't just a ring tonight. It had become a magnet for danger, and I had no idea how far that danger had already reached. My gaze followed her as she mingled, laughing with friends, showing off the ring to everyone who glanced at it. I could feel the weight of fear pressing on me, a suffocating weight that made it hard to breathe. Every glance at that sparkling ring felt like a knife twisting in my heart. Suddenly, loud crash echoed from the other side of the hall. People gasped, turning toward the sound, and for a moment, chaos erupted. Glasses fell. Someone screamed, and a waiter hurriedly tried to contain the spill of drinks. My pulse raced faster. I turned back to Priya, but she was gone. The crowd seemed thicker, and I couldn't see her anywhere. My stomach dropped. Where had she gone? The ring? I had to find her before. Before something happened, I pushed through the crowd, my eyes scanning frantically. Then I saw her near the balcony doors, speaking with a man I didn't recognize. He was tall, wearing a dark suit, his face hidden partially in shadow. They were leaning close, whispering, and the ring on her finger sparkled under the balcony light. A shiver ran down my spine. There was something secretive in their body language, something that made my heart pound with fear. I couldn't hear their words, but I could see the intensity of their conversation. And it made me uneasy in a way I couldn't explain. I tried to step closer. But before I could, the man suddenly turned toward me. His eyes sharp, alert, as if he had expected me. I froze, a wave of dread washing over me. Priya looked at me for the first time that night, her smile gone, replaced with something I couldn't identify: guilt, fear, or perhaps something else entirely. My legs felt heavy, my throat dry. I wanted to speak, to demand answers, but no words came. Then, in a heartbeat, Priya moved. She stepped onto the balcony and, in a flash, the man grabbed her hand. My heart stopped. They moved toward the edge, toward the dimly lit garden below. I screamed her name, my voice cutting through the music and chatter like a knife. But it was too late. The balcony doors closed behind them, and they disappeared into the shadows outside. I ran to the balcony doors, pounding on the glass, shouting for help, but the security staff were nowhere in sight. A cold wind hit my face, carrying with it the sound of distant sirens and the faint rustle of leaves. My eyes scanned the darkness, desperate to see them again, but they were gone. The only thing left was the echo of my own panic and the glint of that ring. somewhere in Priya's possession, now out of reach, and then my phone buzzed again. Another message. My hands shook as I opened it. This one was shorter, but it carried even more terror. She's with us now. Don't try to follow. It will cost you everything. I froze. The night had turned into a nightmare. The ring, my family, Priya. Everything I thought I understood was gone. And in that moment, I knew that the world I had trusted, the life I had believed in, was changing forever. I still remember that night. The world outside felt colder, darker, and somehow sharper. Like the city itself was holding its breath, waiting for something terrible to happen. My mind raced, every thought a jumbled storm of fear and disbelief. Priya was gone. The man, whoever he was, had taken her. And that ring, the ring that held so many memories, was now slipping further from my grasp. I could feel panic clawing at my chest, a raw, burning fear I could not shake. I ran out of the building and into the night. The streets were quiet, but my eyes darted everywhere, scanning shadows, alleys, parked cars. I called Priya's number again, desperate. My voice shaking as I left frantic messages. Nothing. Silence. My mind replayed the last moments I had seen her. Her face. That strange look in her eyes and the man's presence. Something in the way he moved, calm but commanding, told me he wasn't just anyone. He was organized, dangerous, and he had a purpose. My stomach turned. How had this happened so quickly? How could a party end in something so terrifying in minutes? I kept running, my heels clicking against the pavement, the night air cutting through my lungs. I could hear distant sirens now, their wails echoing between buildings, but they were too far away to help me. Every few steps I would glance at the shadows, hoping, praying that I would catch a glimpse of her, of that sparkling ring. And then I saw it, a flash of light reflecting in the dark, quick, fleeting. My heart leaped. I ran faster, my breath ragged, but the figure disappeared behind a corner, swallowed by darkness. My phone buzzed again. Another message from the same unknown number. Stop looking. She belongs to us now. Don't make a mistake. I dropped to my knees for a moment, the cold pavement biting through my clothes, my hands shaking uncontrollably. I felt helpless, trapped in a nightmare I couldn't wake from. My mind screamed at me to call the police, but something told me they wouldn't understand. That by the time they arrived, it would be too late. I had to act. I had to find her before it was really gone. I remembered the man's shadowy figure. The way he had spoken to Priya in whispers, leaning close as if sharing secrets meant to trap her. I tried to think, what could they want? Why the ring? Why her? Every scenario my mind could imagine was worse than the last. The fear in my chest turned to determination. I couldn't let them take her. I couldn't let my memories, my trust, vanish into the night. I started chasing through the streets, following the faint trail of lights, the occasional echo of voices. Every corner I turned, every alley I entered, my heart threatened to burst. My mind was screaming at me to be careful, but fear pushed me forward, faster than I had ever moved in my life. Somewhere in the distance, I thought I heard her voice, just a whisper, almost drowned by the city noise. Help, it seemed to call. My legs moved on instinct, my hands reaching out for anything, anyone who could guide me. The night seemed endless. Street after street, shadow after shadow, my eyes scanning every detail. And then I saw it. A black SUV parked under a flickering streetlight. Priya was inside, sitting rigid, her hand clutching the ring. The man was beside her, leaning over her, whispering, and I realized with horror that they were leaving. Leaving before I could stop them, I ran toward the SUV, screaming her name, my voice breaking, raw with desperation. The man turned, his face finally visible in the dim light. Sharp features, cold eyes, and a smile that made my blood run ice cold. He opened the passenger door, gesturing for Priya to get in. And she hesitated for just a second, but that second was enough for my heart to leap with hope. I lunged, almost reaching her when the SUV sped off, tires screeching, the sound echoing in the empty streets. My hands reached for her, but only air met my grasp. I fell to my knees, the cold pavement burning my palms, my chest heaving. The SUV disappeared into the night, taking the ring, taking my peace of mind. I stood there, trembling, alone. The night seemed darker now, almost alive, whispering threats I couldn't understand. My phone buzzed again. Another message? She is ours. You will not see her again unless you obey. My knees buckled. My mind was spinning, torn between hope and despair. How could this happen so fast? Who were these people? And what did they want from her, from the ring, from me? I felt like the ground had been ripped from under me, leaving me suspended in fear and confusion. I knew one thing for certain. I couldn't stop now. I couldn't let them win. Whatever it took, whatever danger awaited me, I had to follow them. I had to find Priya. I had to get back what was mine, and I had no idea what I was about to walk into. I still remember that night. The city lights blurred past me as I ran after the SUV, my shoes pounding against the wet pavement, my chest heaving as if it might burst from the fear and adrenaline. The wind whipped my hair, stung my eyes, and carried the distant sound of sirens. Though they seemed useless, too far, too late, every street I turned into, every alley I passed, I feared I would lose them forever. My mind screamed, questions I couldn't answer. Who were they? And why did they want Priya? Why did they want the ring? I felt helpless, but I couldn't stop. The SUV disappeared around a corner. And I hesitated, my fear clawing at me, but I forced myself to keep going. The streets became narrower, darker, almost alive with shadows that seemed to move with a life of their own. My phone was dead. I had no way to track them, no way to know where they were heading. Only the sound of the fading SUV tires guided me. The city, usually comforting and familiar, now felt alien and threatening. Each step I took was heavy with dread, yet propelled by the burning need to reach Priya before it was too late. Finally, I spotted them in a dimly lit parking garage at the edge of the city. The SUV was parked at the far end, doors open, the inside dimly glowing with the soft reflection of the ring on Priya's finger. She looked tense, her eyes wide, but not panicked, almost as if she knew something I didn't. The man was still there, whispering into her ear, his expression unreadable, cold. I felt my heart twist, a mix of anger, fear, and confusion. I wanted to yell, to charge in, to grab her, but instinct held me back. There was something in the air, something wrong beyond my understanding. And I had to be careful. I crouched behind a stack of crates, trying to stay out of sight, my breath shallow and quick. My mind raced, trying to plan, to figure out my next move. Could I distract the man? Could I sneak the ring back? Every scenario seemed impossible, yet I knew inaction was worse. I couldn't let them take her. I couldn't let them take my memories, my trust, my life, away in a single instant. The ring gleamed in the dim light, almost mocking me, as if daring me to try. Then something strange happened. Priya whispered something low, almost inaudible to the man, and I saw a flicker of hesitation cross his face. My heart leaped. Was she trying to tell me something? Was there a chance she was planning her own escape? The thought gave me hope, but it was quickly replaced by fear. What if she had no choice? What if she was trapped in a way I couldn't see? I felt a cold sweat on my forehead, my hands trembling with anticipation and terror suddenly. The man turned sharply, as if sensing my presence. I froze, my body rigid. His eyes scanned the shadows, sharp, calculating, and I felt a chill run down my spine. He smiled then, a slow, knowing smile that made my blood run cold. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small device, pressing a button. The SUV doors closed with a mechanical hiss, and the vehicle started moving again. Slowly this time, as if he knew I was watching. My heart sank. They were leaving, and I was still trapped behind these crates, powerless. I needed a plan, and fast. My mind grasped a possibilities chase on foot. Block the vehicle. Call the police, but each option seemed futile against a man so prepared, so careful. I felt the fear grow heavy and suffocating, pressing against my chest like a weight I could not lift. And yet, beneath the fear, there was determination. I couldn't let them win. I couldn't let Priya or that ring disappear into the night forever. Then I noticed something I hadn't before. A small side door slightly open leading deeper into the building. I had no idea where it went, but it seemed like my only chance. If I could get inside, I might be able to cut them off, or at least see where they were headed next. My heart pounded, my hands shook, but I pushed myself forward, slipping through the door into darkness. The air was musty, thick with dust, and the faint smell of oil. Each step echoed like a warning, yet I pressed on, driven by a mix of fear, hope, and the urgent need to save Priya. And then I heard footsteps above me, the sound of someone moving quickly, almost running. I froze, pressed against the wall, listening. Priya's voice called softly, faint but unmistakable. My pulse jumped. She was close. She was within reach. My chest tightened with hope, but it was quickly replaced by a sharp stab of fear when a shadow passed over me, large and menacing. The footsteps stopped and a deep, cold voice whispered, just barely audible, "I know you're there. Don't move." I held my breath, heart thundering in my ears. The night had become a trap, a maze of shadows and danger, and I had no choice but to follow, to risk everything. Because if I didn't, I would never see Priya again. I still remember that night. My heart was hammering so hard I was sure the walls themselves could hear it. The shadow loomed above me, its presence heavy and menacing. My mind screamed for a plan, for a way out. But fear had frozen my thoughts. I could feel every tiny movement, every breath, every creak in the floor, as if the world itself had slowed down just for me. The air smelled of dust and metal, damp and sharp, and every sound my own shaking breath. The distant hum of lights made me feel dangerously exposed. I pressed myself closer to the wall, trying to melt into the shadows, but the voice echoed again, low and deliberate. "I know you're there. Don't move." My body went rigid. I wanted to speak, to call out, but a single word could betray my hiding place. I felt frozen, trapped in that moment, a mouse caught under a predator's gaze. And then I heard her voice, soft, trembling, almost pleading, "Please, don't let them hurt me." The sound ignited a fire inside me. Fear was still there, thick and heavy, but determination surged stronger. I had to act. Slowly, I crept along the wall, each step measured, careful, silent. My hands brushed against a metal railing, cold and smooth, and I realized it led to a staircase. It was risky, but it was my only chance. I climbed, holding my breath, listening, praying that the shadow wouldn't follow. Every step felt like an eternity, each creak threatening to betray me at the top. I reached a small landing, dimly lit by a single flickering bulb. And there she was, Priya, standing near a door, her hands bound loosely, the ring still gleaming on her finger. Relief surged through me, but it was cut short by the man's sudden appearance. He stepped out of the shadows, taller, colder than ever, and blocked my path. My stomach dropped. This wasn't just any man. He was calculated, organized, and dangerous. His eyes held a strange intensity, as if he could read my every thought, every fear. "Don't move," he said again, but this time there was a note of amusement, almost enjoyment in his voice. My mind raced. I couldn't fight him, he was too strong, but I couldn't leave Priya either. Every instinct screamed at me to protect her, to get her out of this nightmare. But the trap was closing fast. My hands shook, my pulse thundered, and the room seemed to shrink around me. Thick with tension, Priya's eyes met mine, wide and filled with panic, and for a moment, I could see her fear mirrored in my own. But then she did something unexpected. She smiled faintly, almost conspiratorially, and whispered, "Wait for it. Just wait." My brow furrowed in confusion. What did she mean? What was she planning? But before I could ask, the man raised his hand, signaling something. And suddenly, the lights went out completely. Darkness swallowed the room, thick and suffocating. I could hear muffled sounds, movement, whispers, the scrape of shoes against the floor. I felt for Priya's hand, desperate to find her, but the shadows hid everything. My heart was a drum in my chest, my ears straining to catch any sound. And then a sudden crash echoed through the darkness, followed by a scream-prize scream. My blood froze. I stumbled forward blindly, hands outstretched, calling her name. Priya, Priya. My voice was hoarse, trembling with terror and rage. And then, almost as suddenly as it had started, silence returned. Dead silence, heavy and oppressive. I could hear my own breathing, loud and ragged. And I realized I was completely alone, so I thought. A faint light flickered at the end of the corridor. A soft glow that revealed a narrow passage I hadn't noticed before. I took a step toward it, my legs weak, my resolve trembling but not broken. Something about that light felt like a clue, like a path out, but I knew better than to trust appearances. Every instinct screamed danger. Still, I had no choice. If I didn't follow, I would never find Priya, never get the ring back, and the nightmare would only get worse. As I reached the passage, a whisper brushed past my ear, soft, sinister, almost teasing. You're too late. And yet, just in time. My blood ran cold. My heart pounded harder than ever. I had no idea who had spoken or if it was just my mind playing tricks, but one thing was certain. The night was far from over. And the danger was far from over. I stepped into the passage. Uncertainty clawing at me, but determination driving me forward. Whatever awaited me at the other end, I knew I had to face it. I had to save Priya. I had to reclaim what was taken. But I had no idea what kind of trap I was walking into. I still remember that night. The passage was narrow, dark, and smelled of damp stone and metal. Every step I took echoed loudly, and I was painfully aware that someone or something was watching me. My heart felt like it would burst from my chest, but I forced myself to keep moving, one shaky step at a time. I could still hear the faint whispers from before, as if the walls themselves were alive, taunting me, warning me of what lay ahead. As I moved deeper, I noticed the faint glow of light coming from a door at the end of the passage. The door was old, wooden, with strange carvings etched into it. I hesitated, my fingers brushing against the handle. Every instinct screamed danger, but I had no choice. Priya was somewhere beyond this door, and the ring, my precious treasure, was still on her finger. I pushed it open slowly, careful not to make a sound, inside. The room was larger than I had expected, but it was empty in a way that made my stomach twist. Shadows clung to every corner, and the air was heavy, almost suffocating. A single overhead light flickered, illuminating Priya in the center of the room. She was standing, her hands now free, but she looked tense, scared, yet strangely composed. The man from before was nowhere in sight. I felt a mix of relief and suspicion. Where had he gone? Priya's eyes met mine, and for a moment, everything else disappeared. I rushed to her, but she held up a hand, stopping me. "Wait," she whispered urgently. "I need to tell you something." My heart was pounding, every instinct screaming to grab her and run, but I stayed frozen, desperate to hear her words. She took a deep breath and began. "That ring. It's not just a ring. There's more to it than you know." My mind reeled. I had only ever thought of it as a symbol of love, of memories with my late husband. But the way she said it, with urgency and fear, made me realize there was a secret hidden in its golden diamonds. "It's dangerous," she continued, her voice trembling. "It's been sought after for years, and now they know it's in our hands." I felt a cold shiver run down my spine. Dangerous. Sought after. My pulse raced. Who were these people, and why had they gone to such lengths to get the ring? I wanted answers, and I needed them now. Before I could speak, a noise from the shadows froze me in place. A soft click, almost imperceptible, but enough to send a chill through my entire body. Someone was behind me. I spun around, heart in my throat. The man appeared from the shadows.com, cold and in complete control. His eyes locked onto me, and I felt a wave of fear I had never experienced before. He spoke softly, almost mockingly. "So, you found her. That was faster than I expected. But I wonder, Can you handle what comes next? His presence was suffocating, and I realized that every step I had taken, every risk I had made, had led me directly into his trap. Priya stepped closer to me, her hand brushing mine, a silent reassurance. "Trust me," she whispered, her eyes fierce now, a spark of determination igniting in them. "I have a plan, but we have to move fast. He's not alone. There are others." I felt my blood run cold. Others? How many more were involved? How deep did this go? I looked at her, desperation and hope tangled together in my chest. Before I could respond, the man clapped his hands slowly, deliberately, the sound echoing in the large room. "Enough whispers. It's time to see who is truly in control," he said, and the walls seemed to shift, revealing hidden doors that had been invisible moments before. Figures emerged from the darkness, 3 more men, their faces masked, their eyes cold and calculating. I realized then that I was completely surrounded. I grabbed Priya's hand, her grip firm and warm, and felt a surge of resolve. We were outnumbered, yes, but I couldn't let fear control me. Not now. Not when we were so close. But just as I took a step forward, ready to face whatever came next, the man spoke again, his voice chilling. "The ring isn't just a treasure, it's the key. And now, you'll see what it unlocks." And with that, the room seemed to change. The walls closing in, the shadows growing taller, moving closer, as if the very air had become a trap. I still remember that night. The walls seemed to close in around us, shadows stretching unnaturally, as if the room itself were alive and watching. My heart pounded so violently that I could feel it in my throat. I gripped Priya's hand tightly, her fingers trembling against mine. But there was determination in her eyes that gave me a spark of hope. I knew we had to stay calm, to think clearly, even though every instinct screamed to run, to fight, to scream. The man in front of us, the one who had orchestrated everything, stepped forward slowly. His masked accomplices flanked him, silent and menacing. "You've come this far," he said, his voice low and chilling. "But you still don't understand the value of what you possess." He gestured toward the ring on Priya's hand, and the diamonds sparkled unnaturally under the flickering light. I had never seen it look so alive, so dangerous. There was something almost magnetic about it, pulling our eyes and attention, demanding fear and respect in equal measure. Priya leaned closer to me, whispering urgently, "This ring, it's not just a piece of jewelry. It holds a code, a pattern hidden inside it, something they've been hunting for decades. Whoever controls it controls more than wealth. They control power beyond imagination." And mine reeled. A code, power beyond imagination. How could something so small hold such danger? I felt a cold shiver run down my spine. Every decision I had made up until now, letting her borrow the ring, chasing her, following them into this trap, had led to this terrifying revelation. The man took a step closer, his eyes sharp and calculating, almost piercing through the darkness. "You're brave, I'll give you that," he said. "But bravery doesn't save you. This ring will decide your fate, and whether you live or die depends on what you do next." My throat went dry. My mind raced. Fight, surrender, take a risk. Every option seemed like walking into certain doom. I could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on me like a physical force. Then Priya moved subtly, just enough to catch my attention. She whispered again, "Follow my lead. Trust me, and don't make a sound until I tell you." My pulse spiked. What was she planning? How could we possibly escape this? I nodded ever so slightly, trying to steady my hands, to control the tremor in my voice. The man's accomplices were just a few steps away, their presence a constant reminder that a single mistake could end everything. Suddenly, the man's eyes narrowed. He pointed at the ring. "Give it to me," he commanded. Priya's hand shook, but she didn't move. The defiance in her eyes was unexpected, almost shocking. My heart leaped, a mix of fear and pride. She had been calm, calculating all along. And I realized that whatever plan she had, it was unfolding now. Before the man could take another step, Priya pressed a small button hidden on the inner side of the ring. There was a sudden flash of light, almost blinding, and a low, vibrating hum filled the room. I stumbled backward, shielding my eyes. The walls seemed to shift, panels sliding open, revealing hidden compartments and strange devices that I couldn't begin to understand. The masked men froze, confusion flashing across their faces. My pulse raced. The ring-hour ring was activating something. Something powerful then, Priya whispered urgently. We have to move now. She grabbed my hand, pulling me toward one of the newly revealed passages. The masked men shouted, trying to regain control, but the room itself seemed to resist them. Mechanisms whirred, lights flashed, and the floor shifted slightly beneath our feet, forcing them to stagger. I felt adrenaline surge through me, mixed with fear and awe. The ring was more than I had ever imagined. It wasn't just a symbol or a treasure, it was a key. We ran down the passage, a hum of the ring echoing in our ears, guiding us through twists and turns. I could hear the masked men behind us shouting, but they were slower now, struggling to navigate the shifting room. Every corner brought new danger, new uncertainty. But Priya was steady, determined, leading us with confidence that I could barely comprehend. And then we reached a large chamber. The walls were covered in strange symbols, glowing faintly, casting eerie light across the room. In the center was a pedestal, and it seemed as if the ring was pulling us toward it, almost as if it recognized its place. I stopped, my breath ragged, heart pounding. Priya placed the ring carefully on the pedestal, and instantly the symbols lit up brighter, filling the chamber with a powerful energy that made the hair on my arms stand on end. The masked men reached the entrance just as a loud, mechanical roar echoed through the chamber. The floor beneath them shifted violently, separating them from us. They were trapped. Relief washed over me, but it was short-lived. The hum from the ring grew louder, almost like a heartbeat, and the pedestal began to glow even brighter. Priya looked at me, eyes wide. This is only the beginning, she whispered. We've unlocked something, and now they'll come for it with everything they have. I swallowed hard, fear and awe clashing inside me. Whatever the ring was, it was beyond anything I had imagined. And now we were at the center of something far larger than ourselves. Something that would change our lives forever. I still remember that night. The glow from the pedestal bathed the chamber in a strange, almost otherworldly light, and I felt my entire body tremble, not from cold, but from the raw energy that radiated from the ring. The hum had grown into a deep, resonant vibration, as if the very air around us was alive. My heart pounded in my chest, adrenaline and fear mixing into a wild, uncontrollable storm. I could barely breathe, and yet every instinct screamed to stay focused. Priya's hand tightened around mine, grounding me, reminding me that we weren't alone. She stepped forward carefully, her eyes fixed on the pedestal. I think it's ready, she whispered, her voice a mixture of awe and caution. I wanted to ask what she meant, but before I could, the ring began to pulse, light expanding outward like a heartbeat. The symbols on the walls shivered, their glow intensifying, and the chamber seemed to hum in a language I couldn't understand. My skin tingled, my senses heightened, and I realized we had triggered something far beyond anything we had imagined. Then the masked men appeared again. Somehow they had escaped their trap, their eyes wide with terror and awe. But the ring's power was already moving. The energy in the chamber swirled like a storm, and the men were thrown back, unable to approach. I felt a strange thrill mix with my fear. This wasn't just a ring Neat, was a force, a power capable of changing everything. But at the same time, I understood that such power was dangerous. Too dangerous to control without understanding. Priya turned to me, her eyes fierce. We have to take it with us, she said. If they recover it, nothing will stop them. But we can't just leave it here. We need to unlock its full potential. I nodded, my mind racing, but fear gnawed at me. What would happen if we did? What if the power was too much for us? But then I looked at her, saw the determination in her eyes, and knew we had no choice. We reached for the ring together. And the moment our fingers touched it, a shockwave of light and sound exploded in the chamber. The floor trembled beneath us, walls shifted, and I felt a surge of energy like fire running through my veins. For a moment, I thought we might be thrown off our feet entirely. But somehow we remained standing, connected to the power coursing from the ring. I could feel it guiding us, almost whispering to us, showing visions of possibilities, of dangers, of paths we could take. The masked men screamed, trying to approach, but the energy pushed them back. Their shouts became muffled, distorted, as if the very air refused to let them come closer. And then, suddenly, the chamber doors slammed shut behind us, sealing us inside completely. I turned to Priya, panic rising, but she shook her head. "No," she said. "It's fine. We're safe for now. The ring is protecting us." I swallowed hard, realizing the truth. The ring was more than a key, more than a treasure. It was alive in some way, responding to our presence, our intentions. My fear didn't vanish, but determination hardened inside me. Whatever this power was, we had to master it. We had no choice. Just as I was catching my breath, a loud, echoing voice filled the chamber. It wasn't the men, and it wasn't Priya. It was deeper, commanding, resonant in every bone of my body. "You have awakened me, and now the reckoning begins." My blood ran cold. I turned to Priya, eyes wide. She shook her head, her lips barely moving. "I didn't expect this." "Not yet." The ring pulsed violently, casting shadows that danced across the walls like living creatures. My heart raced. The energy, the power, the danger, it had just escalated beyond anything we could have imagined. And then, without warning, the pedestal shattered, sending a blinding surge of light through the room. I felt myself lifted slightly off the ground, the air vibrating around me. Priya screamed, and I realized that the power we had unleashed wasn't just in the ring, was now all around us. Alive, dangerous, unstoppable. I clutched her hand desperately as the chamber trembled violently. Something ancient, something powerful, was waking, and I had no idea if we were ready or if we would survive it. I still remember that night. The air in the chamber crackled with energy so intense it felt like electricity running through my veins. Every sound, every vibration made my teeth ache and my heart hammer in my chest. The ring had awakened something beyond comprehension, force so ancient and powerful that it seemed alive, aware, almost sentient. Priya and I clung to each other, our hands tightly intertwined, our eyes wide with fear and awe. This was no longer a chase or a theft, it was survival. The shadows in the room stretched and twisted, forming shapes that seemed to breathe, to watch, to test us. I could feel them pressing closer, threatening, daring us to falter. The pedestal where the ring had rested glowed violently, pulsing like a heartbeat, sending waves of light that illuminated hidden symbols on the walls. They weren't just designs, they were instructions, warnings, and a map of power that I could barely begin to understand. My mind raced, trying to process what was happening. But fear threatened to overwhelm me. Priya stepped forward, her voice steady despite the chaos around us. "We have to control it," she shouted over the hum of energy. "We can't let it control us." I nodded, unsure how we could possibly harness something so immense. I reached out, placing my hand near hers, trying to feel the rhythm, the pulse of the power. The moment our fingers touched, the force seemed to respond to us, wrapping around us like a living shield, pushing back the shadows that had been closing in. Then the voice returned, deep, resonant, echoing through the chamber. "Mortals, you dare to awaken me." Its tone was not just a voice, but a force vibrating through the walls, through our bones. The chamber shook violently, dust falling from the ceiling, and I stumbled, nearly losing my balance. I could feel Priya's strength keeping me upright, and I realized how much we depended on each other. This was no longer about treasure or survival. It was about trust, courage, and the will to face the unknown together. Suddenly, the shadows shifted again, forming figures that were terrifyingly human, yet distorted, like reflections of ourselves, twisted by the ring's power. They lunged, and I barely managed to block one with my arm, feeling a sharp burn as the energy seared my skin. Priya grabbed the ring from my hand, holding it high, and shouted something I didn't understand. The figures froze, recoiling from the light, their twisted faces writhing in frustration. The power of the ring was responding to her intent. I realized then that the ring wasn't just a key or a weapon, it was alive, attuned to the will of whoever held it. The ancient force wasn't just a threat. It was a challenge, testing us, seeing if we were worthy. Fear and awe surged through me, but determination flared brighter. We had come too far to fail now. I tightened my grip on Priya's hand, feeling the energy flow between us, uniting our wills. But then came the terrifying realization. The masked men were still outside the chamber. Somehow they had recovered, and they were not human in the sense I understood. Their faces were masked, but I could feel the malice, the hunger in their presence. They wanted the ring, and they would stop at nothing to get it. The chamber doors trembled under their weight, the hinges straining. Priya and I exchanged a glance. There was no way to escape without confronting them, and just as I braced myself for the inevitable, the ring pulsed violently, brighter than ever, and I felt a surge of images flood my mind. Memories, warnings, faces of those who had held it before, some triumphant, some destroyed. I saw glimpses of what could happen if we failed. Destruction, loss, chaos, and then a single clear vision emerged, a path forward. But one fraught with danger, requiring courage beyond anything I had ever known, Priya whispered, her voice trembling but resolute. We have to choose. Now, if we hesitate, we'll lose everything. I nodded, heart in my throat, and stepped closer to the pedestal. The shadows outside the chamber grew louder, more insistent, almost clawing at the doors. My hands shook as I reached for the ring, feeling the raw power surge through me, searing my nerves, awakening something deep inside. And then a deafening roar filled the chamber, shaking the walls violently. The shadows outside screamed, and the doors shattered, flying open as an enormous figure, cloaked in darkness and pulsing energy, stepped into the room. I froze, my breath caught in my throat. Its eyes glowed with an otherworldly fire, and its presence was overwhelming, crushing. I could barely comprehend it. But one thing was certain. This was the final reckoning. I still remember that night. The chamber shook violently, the air thick with the raw energy of the ring. The enormous figure before us radiated power so intense it made my skin crawl. Shadows twisted around its form, writhing like living snakes. And I could feel the weight of its presence pressing down on me, threatening to crush me. Priya held my hand tightly, her eyes burning with determination. And in that moment, I knew that no matter what happened, we had to face this together. The figure raised its arm, a surge of energy shooting toward us. I instinctively shielded Priya, feeling the raw force blast against us, nearly knocking us off our feet. Pain seared through my arm, but I gritted my teeth and held on. The ring pulsed violently in Priya's hand, almost as if it understood the danger and was ready to fight alongside us. The chamber vibrated, symbols on the walls glowing brighter than ever, illuminating a path that felt intentional, as if guiding us toward the next step. Priya whispered, her voice steady, despite the chaos. We have to give it everything we have. The ring's power responds to intention. Focus on what we want: survival, escape, and justice. I nodded, swallowing my fear, feeling a strange surge of courage. Together we concentrated, pouring our will into the ring. Light burst from it, blinding and pure, and the shadows around the figure recoiled as if in pain. The figure roared, sound that shook the chamber to its core. Its energy clashed with ours, but we held firm, refusing to give in. The ring glowed brighter, spinning in Priya's hand like a miniature sun. I felt its warmth, its raw power, filling me with hope and resolve. The enemies who had chased us for so long stumbled, overwhelmed by the unleashed force, while the figure's form flickered. Destabilized by our combined focus, Priya leaned close, whispering urgently, "Now, We have one chance to end this. Without hesitation, I grabbed her hand, guiding her forward as we approached the pedestal. The figure screamed, energy surging wildly, but we ignored the fear that tried to paralyze us. With a synchronized motion, we placed the ring back on the pedestal, concentrating all our thoughts, all our will, into a single purpose, ending the threat and protecting our lives. There was a blinding flash of light, unlike anything I had ever experienced. The chamber vibrated, walls shaking, and for a terrifying moment, I thought we might be torn apart. But slowly the light intensified, the energy coalescing, forming a protective barrier around us. The figure's roar grew fainter, its form flickering, shrinking, until finally, it vanished with a deafening echo, leaving silence in its wake. I sank to my knees, gasping for breath, heart pounding uncontrollably. Priya dropped beside me, tears streaming down her face, relief washing over her features. The ring rested on the pedestal, glowing softly now, its energy calm but unmistakably alive. I reached out, brushing my hand over it gently. It was ours. But it was no longer just a treasure. It was a force, a guardian, and a reminder of the ordeal we had survived. For a long moment, we simply sat there, holding each other, letting the tension, the fear, and the adrenaline drain from our bodies. The masked men and the enormous figure were gone. The chamber was silent except for the soft hum of the ring, like a heartbeat steady and reassuring. I looked at Priya, my voice trembling. We made it. We really made it. She nodded, still trembling, and whispered, "We did. Together." I realized then that the night had changed us. The fear, the chase, the revelations about the ring's power, they had tested our courage, our trust, and our love. We had survived because we relied on each other, because we refused to give in to fear. And now as I looked at the ring, I understood that some things were meant to be protected, not exploited. We left the chamber slowly, step by step, emerging into the night where the city felt calm again. The events of the night would haunt me forever, but they also left me stronger, more aware of what truly mattered. Priya and I walked together, holding hands, knowing that we had faced darkness and emerged victorious. And as we stepped into the first light of dawn, I turned to the camera in my mind, thinking of all of you listening. Life can throw unimaginable dangers at us, and sometimes it feels impossible to survive. But courage, love, and determination can light even the darkest night. If you enjoyed this story, please like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. And remember, sometimes the most valuable things in life aren't just treasures. They are the people who stand by your side when the world falls apart.